If you look up the definition of business development, you can do a Google search or wherever, you will not find the word sales.
Mm. Welcome back to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Shahid Durrani. We have with us Liz Steblay. Liz is super in the world of independent consulting. She's the founder of ProKo Agency, a firm that connects top-tier consultants with Fortune 500 clients, and the co-founder of the Professional Independent Consultants of America, PICA, I believe, PICA, an organization dedicated to supporting solopreneurs. She comes with 2 decades of experience, making her a leading voice for self-employed professionals. Welcome to our show, Liz.
Well, thank you. I hope I can live up to that intro.
Oh, you will. It's such an important niche. They need help. A lot of them out there trying to make the income from their efforts, and what you're providing them is going to help them get there. And I'm really excited to talk to you about that.
Yes. Well, that's the one thing about being self-employed that holds most people back, is that they're not salespeople and they don't know how to do sales, and it scares them to death to have to find their own work. But I'm living proof that you can be successfully self-employed and never have to do sales.
Yeah. And solopreneur is a pretty new term.
Yes.
So you've been doing this for much longer, and it's a cool term, obviously. But can you share a specific moment where you realized self-employment was your path, and what was the reason for that path, and how did you overall shape where you're going to go with this when you first started?
Yes. Well, I fell into it by accident. So
Okay.
I started my postgraduate career as a consultant with a global firm. And after about 5 years, and after I'd had my baby, I said, this isn't going to work anymore, because when you work for a global firm, that's your whole life, basically. And I felt like I couldn't be a good mom and a good consultant at the same time. So I went to work for a Fortune 500 company, and then I got laid off. Well, the day I got laid off, I called a former consulting client and I said, hey, I just got laid off. Do you need any help? And he said, are you kidding? How soon can you get here? So I literally fell into my first consulting contract before I even had a laptop. And that was actually over 20 years ago. That was back in 2004. Certainly the term solopreneur had never been invented then. But that first year I made more money, worked fewer hours, didn't have to deal with the big firm BS or any partners, and I had more quality time with my kid. And I said, oh, this is great. I'm never going back to a traditional job. So that was the light bulb moment, was when I realized, my gosh, I made a lot more money and I worked fewer hours and I was able to, live the life the way I wanted to. I'm just going to do this. But of course, it's not quite that simple, and I had to figure things out.
When you first mentioned about sales, I mentioned that solopreneurs are basically, at the end of the day, sales professionals. But you are absolutely right. Many of them don't believe that's the case. But you mentioned something that got my attention at the end. They're selling, but they're not really selling. This sounds like more of a mindset shift. Can you elaborate on that point?
100% a mindset shift.
Yeah.
So
Okay, good. Yeah.
through the educational organization PICA that I run, I used to run live workshops on business development for solopreneurship. And the first thing that I would say in that workshop is, the most important thing is to shift your mindset. So it's a little bit like if you were going to go bungee jumping, which I have done and I don't recommend, but let's say you were going to go bungee jumping.
Okay, first, why don't you recommend?
Because
What happened?
I ended up sort of with PTSD. I had a mild fear of heights. Now I have a serious fear of heights.
Oh, it had a reverse effect on you.
Reverse effect. I thought I was
Like,
going to.
you go after your fear, right?
Yes, face your fear and all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway,
There's your fear, but at a reverse.
I'm
Yeah.
here to tell
Okay.
you that winning business as a solopreneur is not nearly as scary as bungee jumping. But let's say that you were going to
Yeah,
try
I
it,
can
Shahid.
imagine.
You might
Yeah,
walk
yeah.
into it thinking, I'm terrified. This is the worst thing. I'm going to die. Or you could walk into it thinking, this is going to be great. And this is going to be such a great rush. And this is a once in a lifetime experience. So that's going that provides visceral reactions, whether you're going in with excitement or you're going in with fear and anxiety. And doing business development and winning contracts and clients is the same thing. So if you go into it thinking, I'm 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 going to see if I am the right person to help this person or this company with the problem that they have or the opportunity that they want to maximize. You're going in almost like on a fact finding mission. And the more questions you ask and the more you can discover about their situation. Now, this is true whether you're a financial planner, an executive coach, a consultant working with corporations. The more questions you ask, the more you'll understand their situation. And the more you'll be able to, with confidence, say, yes, I am the perfect person to help you with this. Or, you know what, I'm not quite the perfect person to help you with this. You need to talk to my friend Shahid. And that's how you do it without selling. It's just about finding the right, helping the right types of clients. So I've been
Yeah,
self-employed
makes
now
sense.
for, gosh, over 20 years. My first business was a multi-million-dollar company, and I swear I have never done any sales.
Mm,
Oh, and
yeah, so such a wonderful point.
one other key point. If you look up the definition of business development, you could do a Google search or wherever you would, whatever, you will not find the word sales.
Mm, okay.
Business development equals
Because,
relationship development.
yeah,
To,
relationship building.
yes, you have to
Yes, yes,
develop
so
trust.
true.
Nobody's going to hire you without trusting that you're the person that can help them.
And sales terrifies a lot of people. The word sales, the paradigm behind it, that people that sell are might do things unethically, for example, in the movies and media, whatever, is part of people's perception. And especially when you become a solopreneur, you don't want to hear that you're selling. But when you're actually going in there, not thinking or worrying about that aspect, you're going in there just to see if you can help them in any way
Yes.
possible. You're just there to serve and help. Then you remove all the pressure. That was the one thing that I noticed for me is that when I go in, when I meet someone, I have no, like my vibrations are usually at a very peak level, regardless of what's happening in that moment. So for me, when I go in there, I'm purely in there in that vibration, in that frequency of seeing how I can amplify this person's life in any way possible. So
Yes.
that's all I'm focusing on. So from that, I could leave them with a win. I could give them some other advice. And because of my nature of being a connector in this business now, it just happened that way that I would say, okay, you know what? You might need this person here, meet with them. Some are affiliates, some are not, just trying to help, serve. And it the stress is completely gone. Of course, maybe you're thinking about your numbers, your revenues, and all that. That might get in the way, obviously, with the energy. But if you do it this way and you practice this way, you'll see when you zoom out, you'll start seeing a lot more wins because your energy was more in alignment.
Yes. It's the how can I be of service? That is the sort of the golden rule for solopreneurs. How can I
Yes.
be of service? And sometimes, as I mentioned in my example, that might be referring you to somebody else. I might not be the right person. But the two keys there are being authentic and having the confidence that you know what you're good at, what you're great at, what you're not good at. So authenticity and confidence, I think, are super
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Wonderful. Now, so your book, Succeeding as a Solopreneur, you have the 6 keys to success. Can you share which one they struggled the most with from the six, and if you can share any practical steps that they could take to kind of overcome that challenge?
Yes. So I would, oh gosh, people struggle with all of them. But
Yeah.
The first
Just that one,
the
right?
first key though,
Yeah.
the first key,
Yeah.
and I just hinted at it, was about authenticity and confidence. The first key is to be prepared to vanquish FUD. And FUD is an acronym for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Some people label it imposter syndrome. I always think of it
Hmm.
as a little gremlin that sits on my shoulder and whispers in my ear, "Who are you to
Yeah.
go pitch this client? You don't know how to do sales. You don't know how to quote your work. You don't know how to negotiate a contract. Who are you to think you can step out onto your own and make a great living doing this?" So we all have that little inner voice. And now that I've been self-employed over 20 years, I can tell you it never fully goes away. And I think this is why it's the first key. It's the first thing that holds people back from pursuing the career of their dreams by being self-employed. And it still raises its ugly head 20 some odd years later. And now I have learned to name it and tame it, and I recognize it, particularly every December when I look at our book of business and I say, "Oh my gosh, all these contracts are ending. We're all going to starve." So, almost the beginning of every December, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the FUD monster, is whispering in my ear, "You're going to starve. There's no revenue." And of course, that never happens. But that's
Mm.
the first key to success is learning how to recognize the FUD monster and tame it and mitigate it so that you can go forward with the confidence we talked about earlier.
Mm. How I like to do, and that's very, very amazing what you just shared. I love that acronym, FUD. You could even have it on a T-shirt, you know.
Right?
But yeah, but it's so true because the voice is always trying to limit us and disempower us in many different ways. But I would like to recommend another viewpoint that instead of trying to fix the FUD or, shift the FUD in any way or deal with it, you could actually work on taking a step to transcend the FUD, meaning you start practicing being more aware of those thoughts and where they're coming from and doing that internal deep work, the subconscious work to finding out where that source is coming from and then heal that source. And it's so beautiful because when you start working on the little version of you when you were 8, for example, when you start working there, you start noticing a lot of these ideas that keep popping up as an adult today, and you heal it, you forgive it, you work with it there, and you notice in the present moment now, the more you do it there, the more true it becomes here, like it was never there. Like it seems like we're reprogramming the timeline, and then the FUD monster doesn't have the grip anymore. So now we are the boss of the FUD. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And you're the living example of this, Shahid, right?
Yeah.
The shifting
Yeah.
your mental mindset can have such a powerful impact on your life. And
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the work that you just described too. And I did that sort of like deep therapy work long before I ever fell into becoming self-employed. But my daily practice now, before I even get out of bed, is to spend 10 minutes just breathing.
Good.
Inhale, exhale.
Yes. Amazing.
And it
Perfect. That's the best thing you could do in the morning, the breathing.
10
Yes.
minutes. And I don't even call it
Yeah.
meditation, because if I call it meditation, I feel like I'm doing it wrong. Like there's a right way to do it, but I can breathe. That I know how to do.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I concentrate on the inhale and the exhale 10 minutes, and that has me grounded.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sure things come to my mind, and sometimes very
Yeah.
insightful things come to my mind, and I still
Yeah.
just come back to the breathing. And that's every day. And when I don't do it, let's say, like,
Love it.
I don't know, like life gets super busy and for some reason I wasn't able to do it for several days in a row, I notice that my life is not as synchronistic as it is when I do it.
Yes. A client of mine, he was saying that I noticed something. Or what? He goes, because I caught him, because he was saying that he's doing the work, and I caught him that he wasn't doing the work, right? So it was really funny. So he goes, I can't believe you caught that. But he was telling me that the days that he does the work and he trains the mind, he does this kind of, morning rituals, and he does the work that we prescribe him. his day is so much smoother. And the days that he skips, so he admitted that he does skip the work. So he goes, the days I skip, it just ends up horrible. And one of the aspects is not the situation, it's him, obviously. It's us, right? It's the mirror effect. But if when we breathe, is like we're elevating our energy levels, right? When we breathe in, it's like it's clearing things.
Yes.
And especially if you try to add a little pause at the top, so at the top and the bottom, like I think it's Huff method or something. There's when you go on the top and you hold it as long as you can, and when you go at the bottom, you hold it there. If you add the holding in there as well and you prolong it as long as you can, that will also increase the level that you're talking about. It'll increase that.
I'll try. I'll have to add that and try that. There's another little
Try
trick.
it, yeah.
Another little trick I do during the
Yeah,
day to just help
yeah,
me be more centered and connected and less,
yeah,
frenetic and
yeah.
stressed. Is whenever I
Hmm.
see matching numbers on the clock, like let's say it's 11:11 in the morning,
Yeah, yeah,
I do the same thing, but only once. I do a deep inhale and a deep exhale,
yeah. Good idea.
and then I keep going. And
Yeah,
it's
you married them.
yes, it just
You
helps.
married that. Yeah.
It helps keep me centered and focused. It takes 30 seconds
Mm,
maybe, and it's a great way to
it's
be
beautiful.
grounded, and that all ties back
Yeah,
to the authenticity and confidence that leads to
yeah,
success.
yeah. Yeah, and then you doing that in the morning, you're basically you're forcing yourself to become present
Yes.
in the moment. And when you see those matching numbers, and by the way, our interview started on 11:11. I didn't mention it to you, but I just looked over and I saw the time. But anyways, when we started recording. But yeah, so when you see that and you do a deep breath, you're connecting that what you see as a matching number and you're connecting it to the breathing, you're making that grounding effect even further. You're actually becoming more grounded because of that interaction that you have with your physical environment.
Now, I suppose there are some people listening to this that are thinking, okay, these guys are really far out there. And to those skeptics, I want to say try it for
Yeah.
1 week, 7 days in a
Yes.
row. Just try 10 minutes
That's
of
it.
breathing and see if your
Yeah.
life is a little easier.
Yeah. It's so funny. And it happens. I was there. So when I heard people talk like this, I was like, change it, get out of here. Like I didn't want to hear any of this. I would have actually people come to me in networking events and talk about this stuff. I go, what are you talking about? I got to figure out my next strategy. But it was when you hit the ground hard, that's when you realize the internal world. But for many, it just seems like, woo or whatever, a waste of time. But I found, like your example that you just shared, that just give it a try yourself. Same way, I like to do the same thing is I like to give the tool and say, okay, try this for 30 days, try this for 2 weeks. You have nothing to lose.
Right.
Try it and see if something shifts, and then if they do the work, if they actually try it, they experience it. If they don't try it and they fight it, then you'll never know.
You're just holding yourself back. So if you really want to be
Yeah,
a successful entrepreneur or solopreneur, wouldn't you do
yeah,
everything that you could to ensure your success?
makes
So
sense.
this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
I'm a living proof. This is one thing that will help.
yeah. You are. So, helping independent consultants basically be in a position where they can attract those high profile clients or high ticket clients. Can you share how you help them? Is there any kind of pointers you could share on the show today that could help someone out there?
Well, I will be very candid that all of my best thinking is in the book. And this book sucked the
Okay.
life out of me because
Very good.
I did
Very
my
good for the people, I mean, not you.
yes, that instead of listening to, a whole bunch of different podcasts or paying $1,500 to go through my solo boot camp, you can buy the book for $20 and really all my best thinking is there. And the easiest place to buy the book actually is to go to sixkeys.info. I mean, although you can find the audiobook, ebook, whatever on Amazon. But anyway, your question was what what was your question? What to do
Oh,
to
about, yeah. How do you help them position themselves to attract those dream
yes.
clients?
Okay. So positioning is actually unwittingly, you just mentioned the second key. The second key to success is to be memorable and be known for something. And so this is where a lot of people struggle. And this is probably where I make the most difference through my one-on-one coaching through PICA is a lot of people think that they want to, when they're going to be self-employed, that they should go to market as a jack of all trades or a Jill of all skills. That if they present themselves as being able to do a whole lot of things, they'll be open to more opportunities. But the reverse is true. The more you can narrow your niche, the more likely you'll be remembered and get referrals. Because if you put yourself in your client's shoes or your potential client's position, they want to hire an expert. They don't want to hire a generalist. They don't want to hire a jack of all trades. They want somebody who has done this, knows it inside out, backwards and forwards, upside down, and they want to hire that person. They don't want to hire somebody who's maybe done something like it once or twice before. So that's why it's so important
So
to be
true.
memorable and to narrow your niche, and also because that's what leads to referrals. And most self-employed people find their work through referrals.
Referrals are so important. So, for the audience, if you're in audio or if you're in video, if you're in audio, hop over to YouTube and make a comment on this video. If you could share your own experience of FUD and how you actually navigated through that experience, we'd love to hear from you. So, you've been very strong in advocating changes in independent talent. Can you share what is the best type of support solopreneurs would need in today's economy?
Oh, the best support would be to find your tribe, find your people, find other people like you, and someone close to you. Because even though it's called solopreneurship, you don't do it alone.
Yeah,
Right? So
you
either
don't. You
either
can't
your
do it
your
alone.
spouse, your adult child, your
Yeah.
best friend, before you even take the leap, have a serious conversation with that person. Say, this is what I'm thinking about doing. This is why. And it's going to be tough. It's the hardest job you'll ever have because you're always having to learn new things, try new things, push your boundaries in new ways. So it is the hardest job you'll ever have. It's also the most rewarding, both mentally and can be financially. And so you need to have somebody in your corner from an emotional standpoint for those days when you're like, why on earth did I ever decide to become self-employed? But you also need to find your community and other people like you because even though you might have the support of your spouse, if they're not self-employed, they don't really understand the feeling and the pressure of
It's true.
of of trying to run your own business and deliver to the clients and do the marketing and the social media and
And the family.
and I got the family thing, right? It's a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to find other people like you, whether it's through a community like PICA or the local chamber of commerce, or there's like for consulting, there's lots of little consulting groups around the country. For one that PICA partners with is called the Society of Professional Consultants, SPC. They do virtual events. It's important to connect with people who are on a similar path.
It's so important. It's so important to have that network of people that, or like you mentioned, someone really close to you to provide that support, because entrepreneurship or solopreneurship can get lonely in many ways as well. So having that support for when you're driving yourself forward towards your goal is super important.
Well, and
So
we talked about our mindset a little bit earlier. You can get tangled
yeah,
up in your own thoughts and your own anxieties, even if you are doing the 10-minute breathing exercise every day.
yeah,
So
yeah, it'll happen.
I hold weekly office hours, and sometimes I have some PICA members will pop in and they'll just say, "I don't have a specific question or a problem. I'm just feeling disconnected and like I'm not making getting any traction." And so that's not it. That's sort of just a nebulous feeling of frustration on their part. And we talk through it. Well, what are you doing? What do you think you could be doing? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And sometimes you just need a sounding board. And that's why it's important to find your community and find somebody to help with that.
And yeah, you could have all of that and still feel the frustration. You'll still feel that walled in feeling. When we don't have the soul, the body, the mind alignment, not just being physical and intellectual, but having the mix of it all, whereas that centered feeling becomes more habitual, and you start operating from that presence in everything you do. So it decreases tremendously when you start working on the source of it, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And
So
sometimes
what
it's the reverse, though. Sometimes it's, I have too much going on. I have too much, too many proposals to write, and I have this big meeting, and I have this
frustration?
presentation, and sometimes it's just too much. But again, it's
It
helpful
gets too much.
to talk it through too.
I notice in the past when I work with clients, they have trouble with the pricing. I had experience where one individual was charging 1,000, but their value was way more. It was way more, and basically felt very uncomfortable even with the 1,000. It's like, how much is it? It's 1,000. Kind of vibe that she was giving with customers. Obviously, what we do everything source. So we work on the source, the paradigm that controls that aspect of what they think of money. But in reality, it needed to have that deep internal work for her to up the price. But in your world, when you work with your clients, can you share any advice, any suggestions to people on setting rates that actually present their true value they're bringing to that other human being?
Yes. So that's actually, you jumped ahead to the fifth key in the book, which is to be confident and charge what you're worth. The single biggest mistake that I see, or I should say the most common mistake I see people make, is undercharging, that they're not charging what they're
Yeah.
worth. And so it can take months or years to do that deep work to have the confidence to say I'm worth 10,000, not 1,000. But in the short term, what you can do is benchmark. So in the book, and actually on PICA's website, lots of places, there's a formula for determining what your base rate could or should be. So I'll explain it very briefly, but there's roughly 2,000 working hours in a year. So a lot of people think, well, I'm going to take my old salary that I had when I was at General Motors, and I'm going to divide that by 2,000, and that'll be my billing rate. But that's not the whole story, because when you're self-employed, you have to pay what's known as self-employment tax. You have to pay for your own business insurance, your own health insurance, your own vacation time. You're running a business. So you have to add about 30% onto whatever that base rate is to even begin to break even on running your own business. So once you have that base rate, then you need to do other research and see what other people are charging. And then you'll come up with a range of rates. So you'll think, okay, well, so let's say people are charging between 200 and 275 an hour for this type of consulting in this part of the country. Now, region is important, right? Because clients are used to paying more in metropolitan areas like New York and San Francisco. And if you're in Idaho and you're dealing with local clients, you're not going to get the same rates. That's just the way the world works. So the region is important. So I tell people two things. One is to develop a range of rates by doing your research and your homework. And the other is to quote a range when somebody pushes you on a price. Ultimately, you don't want to name a price in what I call the intake meeting. When you're asking all those questions and you're like, okay, well, what's your situation and what have you done so far and why is this urgent now? And they'll say, oh, you sound like you might be the person we need. What's your rate? Try not to quote live in the meeting and say, I've heard a lot about what's going on. Let me put together a proposal. Let's book a time for 2 days from now. We'll walk through it together, but let me figure out what it's going to take. And try not to quote a rate in the meeting, because you need time to think through their sense of urgency, the type of industry they're in. There's all kinds of things that'll affect the rate up or down. For example, if they're a biopharma company, they have a lot higher operating margins than if they're a grocery store. They're a lot less price sensitive. So you need to think about it, and you can't think about all that in the meeting. However, if they press you and they're like, well, just give us a ballpark, then you quote the range. And you'll say, well, my rate ranges between 200 and 275 an hour based on the scope, duration, and complexity of the work. I've heard a lot today about what's going on here. So, yeah, the scope is really complex, that your sense of urgency and the duration is pretty short. So let me put together the proposal and let's book a time to discuss it. In the 15 years that I operated as a consultant, I never once had anybody push me to the lower end of the range. Not once. So whatever the number is that you really want to get, put that in the middle. It's documented in psychology. It's called the center stage effect. When people are given a range, they gravitate toward the middle. So
Because even if they tried to negotiate, they would go in the middle to negotiate something.
yes, nobody ever pushed me to the bottom, not once.
Yeah.
So anyway, but
That's great.
benchmarking is super important so
Thank
that
you
you
for
have the
that.
confidence in what that range is. And you can use an AI tool. You can do Google searches. There's lots of different things, and I list them out in the book. But there's also another book that I recommend, and it's called Name Your Price by Kate Dixon. I have it right here. This is the second book I have on the corner of my desk at all times. Name Your Price by Kate Dixon. And she and I, our thinking is aligned on how, if you do the research and you crunch the numbers, it helps stack your spine a little bit taller so that you can quote your rate with confidence and get the rate you want.
Oh, that's great. This has been a great conversation. We can talk about this forever, but it was a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you. And if you want to just share something while we're ending this episode with the audience, if there's any kind of advice or a pointer, tip that you would like to share before we end, please go ahead.
Okay, well, I have two thoughts that came to mind simultaneously.
Yes.
One for the people who are on the fence, who haven't yet made the
Yeah.
leap to being self-employed. I think it's Wayne Gretzky says you regret 100% of the shots you don't take. So just go for it. Now there's my book, there's PICA the organization, there's a lot of people out there doing this. And as long as you have the confidence that what you are good at what you do, you can make a go of it. And you probably, as long as you know that you're smart enough to figure out what you don't know. Okay. For the people who have already made the leap and are self-employed, either as solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, my favorite mantra that I would say over and over in tough times is the only way out is through. Because I've definitely had some dark moments where I'm like, okay, I don't think this business is going to make it. I don't think I'm going to make it, whatever the situation is. There's a story in the book of what I call the bath time meltdown, where I literally had an anxiety attack meltdown in front of my 5-year-old daughter. The only way out is through. It's an adaptation from a Robert Frost poem, and I don't really like poetry, but that was always my mantra. The only way out is through. So, because
Nice.
often quitting's not an option.
No.
So you just have to figure out how to push forward one more step. How can I just get through this situation, and one step at a time, and you do make it through.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much for that recommendation, the awareness, the pointers. I know you gave some information from your book, and audience, please do check out her book, check out her website, her LinkedIn. It'll be in the show notes, and see what she's doing and how she can help you elevate further. Because at the end of the day, like Liz mentioned, we can't do it alone, and when we bring in more people together and to help us with that target, that actually genuinely want to help us to get to that target, is always recommended, because you'll get there so much faster with other people. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you, Liz, and thank you.